All right. Hi, Dorian.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Doing quite well, thank you. And yourself?
Doing well. I'm excited for our conversation. I think the first time we spoke was we were like on a kind of like panel slash workshop hybrid thing. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, this is someone who gets public health comms and what it could and should be. So I'm just really excited to hash it all out with you.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready and excited.
Good. All right, so for those who don't know, you go by Funkle, the public health uncle, and you do public health communications and strategies, and you really do a beautiful job of blending story and humor and systems thinking to make it all make sense, which is a big task given the state of things right now. And so I'd love to start just to hear about like what was your path towards becoming the public health uncle, the Funkle?
Of course. So my path, I actually was a one-on-one personal trainer for 10 years.
Okay.
And through all the clients I would work with, usually in the same geographic area, I'm like, these people, despite all the different walks of life, they are all running into a lot of the same issues
Mm-hmm.
being in the same location. So I'm like, there has to be more than just like their lifestyle. And that actually like sought me looking out for answers, looking more upstream without even like knowing that I was looking upstream.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that kind of opened it up for me when it comes to public health, where I'm like, okay, I got to learn more about this thing. So I
Hmm.
went back to school and yeah, I feel like I started blending like a lot of insights from one-to-one communication, making things make sense for people, breaking down concepts in a way that it could be used in that coaching capacity. And I'm like, how could I do that more like to the populace,
Hmm.
more
Hmm.
upstream?
Yeah. And when did your name come to you?
Oh man. When I was looking in just like public health space, because I am such a big education person, so I always look to like who can I model or who put down the groundwork that I could like start to like learn from.
Hmm.
And I noticed there weren't many Black men. And I'm like, okay, this now presents an opportunity from this gap.
Hmm.
And why not me?
Yeah.
So when I think about just like cultural significance for like some things. So my default, and I got to like start bringing more examples. So there's Uncle Charlie, Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band, and there's Uncle Snoop, Snoop Dogg. He's like, everyone's my nephew. My niece is a nephew. And it's just
Hmm.
like, Uncle is like such a like cultural touch point where it's like they're wise, they're not your parents, so like they can come
Hmm.
at you in a different way.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I want to do that. Like it
Yeah.
really helped with me working in schools because teens like are not your parent, but
Hmm.
they need guidance in a way that like makes sense to them. And it just like embodied all of that. I'm like, I'm the uncle, but I'm the fun uncle.
Hmm.
I'm the funkle. And then like that's how it came about.
Yeah, and like that's such a important place to hold, like we've in our hyper nuclear family structured lives that we now live, we've lost that sense of like what words we can use for chosen family and like the people we really trust and who guide us. And I think that auntie and uncle have really taken off as this sort of and like for us in indigenous communities, like we've called people auntie. Like I wouldn't dare call some of the closest people to me anything other than auntie. If I called them by their first name, that'd be bizarre. But now more and more I see it outside of like across, other cultures and things as well of just like this is the word we can use to say this is not my friend, this is something else, but like I trust this person with this certain amount of knowledge and responsibility and like they love me in a way that they will guide me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's when did you coin it?
Oh man. You know what's so funny? I feel like I just hit my like Funkelversary like in October.
Wow, happy birthday to
Because
Funkle.
yeah, like when I had to redo my domain, I'm like, it's been a year. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
right. There you
So
go.
that was like a way to like get me to do that. And Yeah, it's what a long, strange, fun year that it's been.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you talk a lot about making health make sense. What does that mean to you, and what does that look like in practice when you're tra doing all this translation work that you end up doing between like how public health talks about things versus how people need to receive information in order to integrate it into their lives?
That's a great question. And I think a lot about health literacy and how the definition has been expanded to also include the people delivering information. Where gone are the days where, let's say, you get some sort of advice from a medical practitioner provider. All right, do this. Good luck. Oh, you
Hmm.
didn't get it? I don't know. That's on you. Like, gone are those days, thankfully, where now it's very much we know teach back, we know like these different methods and techniques to really see if someone understands something. I feel like a lot of the stuff that has helped me with translation is thinking about what pop culture or what meme or like what thing that people are paying attention to. It's like, let me take a step back. Have you
Hmm.
ever like something, you're experiencing something or you heard of something, and then you later find out, wait, that's a term? Like something like that exists.
Hmm.
But like I try to intersect like that specific like thing where people could understand something and then I kind of make it make sense for them. So like a really good example right now in like my space, Instagram has like teen accounts now,
Hmm.
if you hadn't heard that. So like Instagram teens where it's like it controls who can reach out to like the teen and
Yeah.
it controls like what the content they can see. And from that like systems level, that could make it make sense more where so many times when it comes to like digital hygiene or like personal things and action that someone is taking, you could always pass a blame where it's like, well, they should have been following X, Y, and Z, or
Hmm.
like they should monitor their own screen time, or like any reason that blames the individual and not the system. But like, this is a way where it's like, this is what it could look like when systems are making things easier for people to do. Like Instagram Teens is not just keeping it on the individual level,
Hmm.
it's something more upstream intervening. And if someone could like get that, I feel like that cracks things open for like other problems and other things where it's me. And I feel like, especially with parents and the values that they have, like with their kid, like it's now more personally relevant to them.
Hmm.
So, little examples like that are ways I like to translate where it's like, where are you seeing something like this already happening in your life?
Hmm.
And then kind of just like bridging that where it's like, yeah, that's a concept, that's a construct, that's a thing,
Yeah.
and kind of like see what they think about that.
Hmm. Yeah, and that I think also approach makes public health so much more visible because as you know, having worked in it, like a lot of people up until the pandemic would say, well, what is that? Like what's public health? And
Mhm.
even now I think there's still a question about like, okay, what are y'all up to? And it's because public health done well kind of becomes invisible into our lives. And and that's great and wonderful. But when you tie it to something that's like new or nuanced in like people's lives or like on their minds or in the public discourse, it's like, yeah, we do this in that way in public health as well. It brings it to the forefront and like conceptualizes something that's just so big and broad and sometimes intangible, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah.
I
It's
do
like,
agree.
like airbags are public health, and like, but you don't think of, you don't think about that. So when you can like have the example of like, yeah, that's a structure that you like opt into just by getting in a car, sort of like these big systems like Instagram have things you opt in or out to that keep you safe or parameters for teens. Yeah. So it's such a good translation mechanism. And one question I have on that sort of leads me to a next one is like, you know, I think one place where your and I's work, there are many where they overlap, but one is where we think about like communications and trust building across power differentials. And as we know, and as we've discussed in our previous conversation, there's public health has historically done a very poor job, at least in my opinion, of like communicating in a way that anybody is going to feel trusting of the institution doing that communication or how it's being done. And I would just love to hear your thoughts on like how public health can improve that communication across power differentials to actually build trust and like improve health seeking behaviors.
Yeah. So I feel like how I am unpacking this question and processing it in my head, it is starting with just trust as a concept and like what it means.
Hmm.
And I feel like when you look at just historical stuff and context, that cannot be ignored as far
Hmm.
as like when it comes to extractive nature of like research, when it comes to that. I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit when I was talking about health literacy, where there was a point where the expert role as like the provider or practitioner, it's like, you are not to question me. Like,
Hmm.
this is what it is. And even kind of like a take it or leave it. Like, I feel like having and acknowledging these past transgressions, like, cannot be taken out of the equation and like rebuilding trust and like establishing trust.
Hmm.
And I feel like we say this, but it's very like, show me, don't tell me.
Hmm.
Like for me, and I feel like a lot of that comes like my coaching background, where a lot of times it's when you're looking at behaviors and like things that people can do that are trackable, that are measurable, like it's very easy to say I did XYZ. It's harder to prove it. And
Hmm.
I feel like that same energy when it comes to like people in power and people from like an expert position, it's part ego, I would say. It's part like willing to like separate self from
Hmm.
like, how do I want to put it? Like it is a loaded question, but like I do feel like when it comes to trust, there has to be like a degree of vulnerability.
Hmm.
It has to be a seeking to understand where someone's coming from. It's a dialogue. It's not like a monologue. And a lot of that comes from, you know, that awareness.
Hmm.
And I feel a lot of times experts, there even are current coined terms as like the curse of knowledge or like the expert trap, where a lot of times it is that like separation or lack of separation from like, this is what my schooling says, these are what my credentials say, but like, what does the person in front of you say?
Hmm.
What does the community in front of you say? And yes, there are things that like someone knows that like the community might not, but you're not competing.
Hmm.
So like where you end and where does this person begin or this community begin? And like what is the intersection there?
Hmm.
And even if there are things that like someone might know or ways that they feel that they could help, the community is like, I don't know, you up, or I don't know, we don't trust you, or I don't know. They feel that's something to be respected.
Hmm.
And it's like, maybe you're not the person for them. Or like, even what did that reveal in that interaction that like you might be able to work on for yourself for like
Hmm.
future things?
Hmm.
And I feel like that willingness to self-reflect, to evaluate yourself. Like we can evaluate externally,
Yeah,
do we
right.
evaluate internally? So um I'd be yapping, obviously. I'm trying to think that I answered the question, but I feel like it starts with just like, what is trust, and like, what are you actively doing to create that? And I feel like it
Hmm.
has to start with at least, acknowledging historical transgressions in this field specifically. And it can go down to like the community level. Like maybe there were instances in which researchers came in the past and didn't highlight or spotlight or amplify, like it left a bad taste in their mouth, so to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
So if another opportunity for research presented itself and they already felt burned, like, do you even know that they felt burned? Like, are you
Right.
trying to like understand this from them? Or is it like, I'm here to do my job and just center self? And that's not a good way to
Hmm.
build trust.
Yeah. Yeah, that you should trust me just because is never a great way to start in relationship building.
Of course.
Just do it. Just trust me. And like what role do you see storytelling play in that like trust building communications and that translation as well?
Yes, yes. What role do I see in storytelling? Well, stories inherently have a couple of elements in it where there are villains, there are heroes, there are characters, there are arcs, there are all these things. And I
Hmm.
feel like the role that story can play, people, communities, like they're the heroes of their communities,
Absolutely.
regardless. So, like, when it comes to researchers or evaluators or like external people outside of the community, when I think about stories, there are archetypes, and like
Hmm.
some archetypes that come to mind immediately are like the mentor role, where you think about like Professor X or X-Men, or I really don't like Yoda. Like, honestly, I mean, I get it, I get what he does, but the first time I saw him, I was like, don't piss me off, man. Anyway, but you understand how like Yoda helped Luke like really tap into like what it is, but like Luke saved the day. Like it wasn't Yoda doing it, but like Yoda guided him. Yoda used that expertise as a Jedi to help him step into that role. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's analogous to like what we can do. Are
Hmm.
we trying to be the heroes of these community stories, which they're the heroes of their stories,
Right.
but what other role can we serve? And I feel like that story helps conceptualize. I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, where it's something where I'm trying to, what's the term? I don't want to get too off track, but there is a specific term that is not getting to me right now. But people could see themselves in story. People could see
Hmm.
themselves in character. People could see themselves in this, and you could build that alongside people. And I feel like it's a way to get buy-in. I
Hmm.
feel like it's a way to build hope. I feel like it's a way to mobilize. I feel like it's a way to really like get, how do I want to put it? Like the role of story can make data, can make numbers like really come to life, because like
Hmm.
every data point is a person.
Hmm.
And like if you could see that in a character, if you could see that in a community in a way where like it makes sense to brains, in a way that it shifts emotion and perspective for stakeholders that don't want to read like
Hmm.
specific like PDFs or
Or just get
documents
so
or
many
this.
across their desk every day. You know, it's like your our
Hmm.
numbers are falling on like it's not so much deaf ears as it is just like overload of just like these people are
Hmm.
getting like report after report after report. Like, how are we going to get our report to stand out? It has to be
Yeah.
story.
And like, yeah, that is a differentiator as well, like to be able to do it. And there's so many different ways to tell stories,
Hmm.
which I think they should tap in. Like, I feel like even data visualization is a
Hmm.
storytelling like
Hmm.
technique that's better. It makes it come more alive than a report. If you could like have a dashboard that's interactive, that tells a story, that follows an arc, whatever. Like, I feel like all these things are tools that could be leveraged.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you often talk about like understanding the system is what helps us change it and what helps people interact with and change it. And how does like how the system communicates or how we communicate about the system like bring people into it, if that makes sense? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great one. And like that is something that is coming to mind when it comes to narratives and narrative work,
Hmm.
where narratives are a bunch of stories sewn together to like
Hmm.
create. And I use a metaphor of like a quilt, where like if you think of each patch as like a story,
Hmm.
all these stories sewn together create a narrative, which then people buy into, in essence.
Yeah.
Like it creates like their reality in their world. So some big topics that you could see that are, I don't want to say controversial, but like there are definitely like opposing sides when like you look at the narrative. Like when we think about homelessness and houselessness, when we think about economic like capitalism, like is it evil, is it not, when you think about all these big ideas and all the stories that create that narrative, but then also what counter narratives can come. So I'm speaking very abstract right now, so like let's get a little bit more like into it. So one of them that I shared, right, like houselessness and homelessness, if someone is under the impression of, well, you're not working and therefore you don't deserve to be housed, and someone is thinking housing is a human right, like automatically we have like conflicting stories.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see how houselessness can be like literally outlaw, like there's laws on the book where it's like criminalizing people that are not, like what story might this law be reinforcing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now we start to like get a little bit deeper when it comes to like what are all the other stories that you could see in that policy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take a step back like, in the reality, right? Like I know a lot of people joke about it, but we see it, right? There's so many people where it's like you are closer to being like on the street than being a billionaire. And like we
Mm-hmm.
see like bootlicking and we see like this. And what are these stories that like this demographic is like believing? And
Mm-hmm.
like, is it something where the narrative, like what is the counter narrative to these things, and like what is the dominant, and like what is winning, what are people believing, what is being codified, what is being polished? Like there is one thing I meant to send it to you before, but you're also seeing like a lot of people come up with like workshops and ways to be able to understand narrative and build narrative,
Mm-hmm.
where there's a economic narrative workshop that I saw where it's
Mm-hmm.
literally like teaching people how to like tell better stories about like the economy and
Mm-hmm.
how we can change things for the better. So like this is where I feel like content creators and like other people could learn this stuff, kind of like what we were talking about here, to be able to ideally shift narratives in ways that are more equitable, to be able to take control and reframe things in a way that is rooted in justice, in a way that is rooted in like human rights, in a way that is rooted in dignity. Because we're seeing so many like narratives that serve a purpose to divide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like it starts with like knowing the stories that build the narratives, to know where we could push back, to know where we can build counter narratives, to build restorative narratives as they're called.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with like that awareness. Like I remember even before like, public health schooling and like whatnot, you couldn't tell me meritocracy wasn't like the thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you obviously need to like study enough and like work hard and like outwork everyone and like then you'll be successful. Meanwhile, you see people working two, three, four jobs, people being able to like work hard, like
Mm-hmm.
on paper, doing the stuff, putting in effort, but like the results aren't there. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a way to crack open the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's one person who just bought their third yacht or different vacation home, who literally isn't working, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, like isn't putting out that effort. But like there's the people that are below them on like the hierarchy of like a workplace that are working this hard, that
Mm-hmm.
are being able to like it make that's where you can see like the narrative and like the stories fall apart, which could
Mm-hmm.
hopefully like, wait, yeah, why is it that these workers are literally stressing themselves thin, overextending themselves, don't have benefits, are needing to choose between like basic needs, between like housing and food and
Mm-hmm.
medication, but they are working as hard as it is. Maybe it's not just hard work. Maybe there's other factors at play. And
Right.
like stories are a way to like crack open like flawed narratives
Hmm.
because the narratives that are in place, the dominant ones, serve a purpose to like keep society going as some people intend for it to go.
Hmm.
So, wow, that was a long-winded answer. But
It
like,
was a great one though. And something I think about too a lot is like how narratives almost become invisible to us. They're like the water we
yeah.
swim in, and stories are the way that we almost like make the narrative visible. And so when we
Hmm.
have those really compelling stories, like what you're saying is like, if there were if hard work equaled income, then there would be a cap on how much money you could make because there's a cap on how many hours there are in the day to work hard. And so like that's clearly not true. And so it's like when we
Hmm.
find those stories of and like and call out the narrative in a way that compels people, it's the only time we almost like become aware of this like otherwise like yeah, water we're swimming in that's like impossible to see because we're in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to really be nerding out about this stuff to be aware of like that we even run on narrative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are institutions and like organizations that help with stuff like that, with like
Yeah.
narrative facilitation and being able to learn specific narratives where you can start to tell stories around it and you could
Mhm.
start to identify the stories in other people's lives and hopefully, create that restorative narrative and challenge what's in place. So,
Yeah, for sure. You are also funny. And so tell me about the role of
yeah.
like humor in public health communications and like the role it plays in your work and the role it plays in like engaging community and what can otherwise be what's like a dry topic of public health and the systems that support them.
Yeah. So first, thank you.
Yeah.
um, The role of humor, I feel humor is something that can unite. I
Hmm.
feel like humor, if used well, like it really takes observations and makes it make sense. It goes back to that translation, I feel. And humor is something where I can't ignore like the power of any sort of emotion when it
Hmm.
comes to connecting with people.
Hmm.
And I feel like if you can make someone laugh, if you make them smirk, if you can make them giggle, like you're in their ear,
Yeah,
that's
you
an
made it.
opportunity.
Uh-huh.
That is something where you could build from that. And I mean, there's different levels of humor. Like, I feel like I haven't done anything on like LinkedIn as far as like dark humor. I feel like
Hmm.
that's more TikTok. And like, it is so easy to like go into dark humor with
Hmm.
public health. It
Hmm.
really is.
Hmm.
I haven't navigated those waters, but like the point here being that like humor can be something to like connect with people. And I
Hmm.
feel like it's also something that can make sense. I've done activities with schools as far as like something that teaches lessons that I like to say I Trojan horse some things.
Yeah,
Like
you
we're
have
familiar with like
to. You have
the
to.
story, yeah, of like the Trojan horse. Like, and at the end, like reflecting, I was like, oh my gosh, I learned something. Like I
Hmm.
did this one activity speaking about it's emotional intelligence in alternative high school. So like automatically, like I was looked at as like this outsider. I was
Hmm.
looked at as like, what is this person? Are we gonna get lectured? Like it
Hmm.
I had to overcome some stuff to even like be seen as someone like why are you just inviting this person here? Like
Uh-huh.
like I had an uphill battle like automatically, and I was able to use humor to like lower defenses. I
Hmm.
was able to use humor. I was able to like, they'll crack jokes amongst themselves, and I'm like, I like to laugh too. Like, what was
Hmm.
it? But like in a way that wasn't that like strained power dynamic where
Hmm.
like teachers could like be calling people
I'm
out, and
cool
it's like
too. Yeah.
yeah. Or it's like, oh, you have a joke? You want to share it with the class? Like,
Uh-huh.
now,
Uh-huh.
why are you attacking me? Like, I'm like, I love humor. Like, it could be used well. You just connected with that person next to you because you told a joke.
Hmm.
Like, even if it was at my expense, like, I'm an adult, I could take it. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Like, that's not what we're doing right now, but it's like, you see how you just connected with that person because, like, you told a joke? guess what? It could be used for good. It could be used for other things. And like even just these little reframes are a way where it's like, oh, okay. But we did this activity where it was like assertiveness building and skills, like EQ. And I did like a scenario where like, okay, your group chat is like going off right now, and you really want to go to bed because you have a really big day tomorrow. Three groups. You're gonna respond passively, you're gonna respond assertively, you're gonna respond aggressively. And
Hmm.
literally, like the jokes that they were telling and like all this stuff, they were like, wow, I didn't realize I could learn assertiveness skills and like
Hmm.
emotional awareness and boundary setting while having fun and making jokes. And I'm like, I'm teaching you stuff using humor because like you could
Yeah.
teach that way too. And I feel like I also like to have levity in the face of like such draining work. It's so
Hmm.
exhaustive. It's like every day there's something else that could just like really take it out of you.
Hmm.
So I feel like humor is a way to kind of ground myself.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to like come off as like, oh, humor solves everything, but it's like a way to help cope, I
Hmm.
suppose,
Hmm.
productively, adaptively. But also there's something that could like introduce someone and like
Hmm.
connect with someone like by using humor.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, it's a door opener. Like, okay, maybe it doesn't solve
Yes.
things, but it, like, the thing that we miss so often in public health communications and in like relation building with communities is like getting attention in the first place, or like opening that door at all. And then like we keep the door locked and shut and then wonder why no one's coming in it. And it's like, because you locked it, but like
Yes.
if humor can open the door so that folks can figure out whether or not they want to come in, like that's a huge step. And like the rest can happen after that. But like if we skip that, like I don't know, actual connection step, and humor is such a connector. You can't really like
Absolutely.
laugh at someone without like looking at, like the thing when you're like laughing at someone's joke, you almost automatically like make eye contact with them, and like, you're gonna like that connection is there. And so yeah, I don't know where along the way or why like public health as a profession and group like got so precious about our messaging about like how like scrubbed and polished and everything it needs to be. And it's like we're going to get nowhere if we don't find a way to talk to people like people talk, and like
Yeah.
and how they want to like get information. And that's why, one of the reasons I just have so much respect for your work is you like it's breaking things down in a way that it's like um creates that door in the first place, and just being like, okay, we are a human made system speaking to other humans. Like, can we act like it? Or like, why are we, like,
Yeah.
why are we so weird about just like basic human connection in what is supposed to be like a human driven service based, like we're literally, and when we sign on to public health, we sign on with a responsibility to like to the communities we serve, yet somehow we won't speak to them in like any meaningful way. And it just doesn't, I just don't get how we got here?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. There is definitely a disconnect with that. And yeah, humor can be that bridge and that door opener. It can be used counterproductively. I do want to like caution.
Absolutely.
Like there are ways
Absolutely.
where intentionality goes a long way. Please do not. I mean, if something does offend, like put your foot in your mouth. That's
Yeah.
another way where like you could potentially like create more discord. Like say you are trying to use humor as a strategy and it doesn't really land, but like you're not keeping yourself accountable for something that you did and you're acting as if it didn't exist, or like you're trying to brush it under the mat. That's another way that it could create mistrust.
Absolutely.
So like I do want to caution that as well.
For sure.
Disclaimer. Like
Well,
if you
because
do
yeah, you have to be like in the in group to make a joke about the like like not that we're like I'm not saying humor is making fun of, but I'm just thinking of like with my I have a big family, like I'm one of six kids, and like I can make fun of my brother, but if like the neighbor made fun of my brother, I'd be like, "Are you kidding? Who do you think you are?" You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to have certain like you've got to be able to read the room and know like where your humor can go in order to enact humor. And like with that, that means you need like trust with your community and all these other things that we were like begging public health to do on a daily basis.
100%.
Yeah. So you do a lot of like communications designing. Is that a true that's true that you do like yeah, just like helping organizations and communities like design health comms?
So I am in talks with some. I
Okay.
haven't had my first official,
Okay.
but I'm building my portfolio.
All right.
So, like,
Love
if
that.
they could see what I am capable of, let's have a chat. But
Yeah.
yes, I'll get there.
Hmm.
I'm prepared to be able to, but honestly, I haven't done any like outreach. So, like,
Yeah.
I
But
I could do better there.
when you think about that work, like when you think about designing communications, like what are the principles that guide you when you think of this like reconnecting communities with the health systems that are meant to support them?
Hmm. I might need to ask for
Yeah.
clarification really quick because like, I know we started talking about like designing, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, as far as like graphics, as far as like
Or just like
how I'm like reading,
communications
or
campaigns, like how you're
got
going to
it,
say how things are going to be said, how they're going to be delivered, the channels they're going to go over, things like that.
got it.
Yeah.
Um, so to that, I I think I've mentioned a little bit earlier, but if not, I'm gonna now. So like there is such power in the concepts of metaphors for
Hmm.
teaching tools. Like one of them I dropped was like, the quilt and like narratives and story.
Hmm.
And it just like makes things make sense. So like writing metaphors, like you could also have visual metaphors.
Hmm.
And I feel like those are ways that could also like wow, make things make sense. So like it made if there was something to create a visual metaphor on and like there's a concept that like it could be created, like that would be something that would design, because you need to
Hmm.
see the visual metaphor. But if it's something that is more spoken or written where it could just be like a soundbite or something like
Hmm.
that would inform, if it would be a video or whatnot. And just like campaigns itself, I what is the textbook that I would use? But like I do have like a textbook that like has like steps, like 7 steps of like creating a campaign that I like
Hmm.
always keep in mind with me.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is something else that based on my observations, I feel like there are tools and resources that are out there that I feel like practitioners are familiar with like in their schooling and stuff, but I wonder if like that stuff gets used
Right.
in a way,
Yeah.
like in practical, like I don't want to put it like I don't want to say like on the job, but I also want to say like on the job. Like if someone was tasked, right, with doing or creating a campaign, is it something where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna talk with like my team and maybe we'll just create something? Or is it like, here are some frameworks we could use, and like here is like step one, soup to nuts, all the way down to step seven, and
Hmm.
like we're checking in and doing like that I feel like with learning it for schooling, I see it, but
Hmm.
like on the job or like doing stuff, I feel like that stuff's forgotten.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, I feel like in changing like social media, like it's tough, like especially if you have to like do something like timely, like you might not have the luxury of being able to like remember everything
Hmm.
from like, okay, well, if I want to talk on this thing and I don't have the means to pull specific people or involve specific people, like I kind of got to just go. So like I
Right.
get that, but I feel like it could also be like rooted in principles and like frameworks and things.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
and it's also a reminder that like if we want things to change in public health, like we need to take that time to think about like, okay, well, the way we've been doing things hasn't necessarily been like engaging or trust building. Like, can we go back to the drawing board and like try something else rather than like, you're saying like, yeah, of course we're short on time and things like that, but there needs to come a time where we think like, how do we actually meet people where they are with these communications rather than just like retrying over and over what hasn't been working?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree.
What stories do you hope that like we'll be telling about health 10 years from now? 2035.
Oh my gosh. That is a good question. What stories do I know to tell? I would love, and this is once again coming back from just like being in fitness for
Mhm.
so much of my like life and like front part of the career. I was totally 10 toes down with just a like willpower and like you are responsible for like your own health. No
Mhm.
questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. Like if you are unhealthy, you don't want something enough.
Mm.
And looking back, I want to literally vomit. And
Mhm.
like I was so deep in that.
Mhm.
Stories that I would love to see us told is there is a communal aspect to health.
Mhm.
There are things that influence what people can do
Mhm.
that go way beyond what it is that their ability allows. And being able to acknowledge that and confront that and do stuff with that. Because I feel like that one narrative, it welcomes like shame, it
Mhm.
welcomes like victim blaming, it welcomes all these unproductive things from that one narrative of like you are solely responsible for your health.
Yeah.
So I feel like shifting from that individual to a more collective, which a lot of public health work is focusing on, like, yes, prevention, but also just being able to acknowledge that, like, there are systems and there are structures and there are policies that get in the way of people being able to live their best, healthiest lives.
Mhm.
So I would love to just shift any sort of like, it is solely on you
Mhm.
to like, if someone is struggling or if someone is challenged or if someone is not able to get what it is, instead of like defaulting
Mhm.
to like a victim blame or defaulting to like they're inferior, they're lazy, they're whatever like harsh adjective, can we look at what's going on? Can
Mhm.
we get context? Can we also come from like an act of service instead of like snide, just ugh. What's the opposite of a cop? Insults. What's
Mhm.
the opposite of a cop? But yeah, I really feel I would love to tell more like community power, collective transform, and even honestly, some stuff that is like untraditional. Like there are some communities that they have healers that they don't necessarily, you know, want to go to doctors, but
Mhm.
they're feeling of sound health and sound mind and respecting people's autonomy and decisions for themselves, but also like having conversations that allow people to tap into their values
Mhm.
and what it is they want for themselves instead of feeling like coerced. Like I feel like that is something else, like more empowering, autonomous stories. And at the end of the day, like understanding that doing the best you can and putting out effort in a way that's person centered, like people aren't always going to be shifted or swayed, but you showed up in a way that honored their agency and respects them and shared things that are factual and connected with them. Like, even if someone doesn't take your advice, it's not like they're an enemy or like they're
Mhm.
bad people. And like understanding where to like separate, like, it's not like you're a flawed practitioner because this person didn't, sign on, if you will,
Mhm.
but you did what you had to do. They still felt aligned. They still felt like in a good place as far as like their values. And those are stories worth telling too, because you can
Hmm.
still learn like maybe there is something that was revealed in that conversation and dialogue that could help inform practices for like another iteration. Who knows? But like separating that like one track goal, like I'm gonna get this person to like get vaccinated, or I'm gonna
Hmm.
get like what is the thing behind the ass behind all this that you could learn, because stories also teach.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, I love that. That seems like a perfect note for us to wrap. And I would just love for you to share with listeners where they can find you, where they can connect with your work, where they can follow along.
Sure. So my most active thing is on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and it's just Dorian Johnson. I don't think there's any link, or like I don't know, honestly. Like I just say like people can look me up on LinkedIn. Like if
Yeah.
you search
That
like the
search bar. You'll
Funkle, like
yeah.
you'll find me.
In the way you can't search people by their names on Instagram, you can on LinkedIn. It's the only way to find them.
See, there you go, y'all listeners.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, not only for this conversation, but for all the things you're up to, all the things you're doing, all the places you're going.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you as well. Bye.